Okay, picture this. It's a scenario almost all of us have played out in our heads at some point, right? You find a house you absolutely love. You look at the listing and the price tag says $400,000. Immediately, you start doing the mental math. You're imagining the kitchen layout, you picture your car in the garage, visualizing the backyard in the summer. Maybe you even know exactly where the Christmas tree is going to sit next to that front window. It's an incredibly emotional moment. But in today's explainer, we're going to look right past that front window and break down the pure, unfiltered economics of what is actually happening when you buy a house in 2026.
We see, when we look at that $400,000 price tag, our brains immediately do something, well, kind of dangerous. We naturally translate this massive, incredibly complex purchase into what feels like a manageable monthly budget. We figure we'll put down our 20%, borrow the rest, plug it into a mortgage calculator, and tell ourselves, hey, if I can make that payment every month, I can afford this house. It's a totally natural assumption, but as we'll see, it's also a massive mental trap.
So, let's look at the actual math behind that trap. If you buy that $400,000 house and put down 20%, which is 80 grand, you're borrowing the remaining $320,000. Now let's think about that specific number, $2,054. That's roughly your monthly principal and interest payment on a standard 30-year fixed loan right now. Looks highly attractive, doesn't it? I mean, it feels completely manageable. But here's the kicker. That mortgage payment, it isn't the actual price of the house. It's literally just one single meter on a very, very large dashboard.
The absolutely crucial point here is a complete mindset shift. When you sit down and sign those papers, you aren't simply buying a single product. It's not like buying a television or a car that you eventually pay off and you're just done with. No, you are buying a long-term cash flow machine. Once you take ownership of that property, the bills simply do not stop. The house behaves way less like a one-time purchase and much more like a decades-long financial commitment that you have to continuously fund.
To truly understand this cash flow machine, we've got to completely scrap the idea that there's one single thing called the cost of a house. In reality, there are 5 distinct layers of costs hiding inside this one transaction. Layer 1 is acquisition, just getting your foot in the door. Layer 2 is financing, literally the price of borrowing the money. Layer 3 is ownership, think taxes and insurance. Layer 4 is maintenance, because let's face it, roofs and water heaters do not care about your budget. And finally, Layer 5 is the exit, all the costs associated with eventually selling the place.
Let's peel back just that very first layer, acquisition. On our $400,000 house, your 20% down payment is 80 grand. But spoiler alert, you aren't finished spending money. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB, points out that closing costs typically run around 2 to 5% of the purchase price. That means you're looking at an additional $8,000 to $20,000 for things like appraisals, title services, and government fees. So before you even squeeze your sofa through the front door, your total upfront cash requirement could be sitting anywhere between $88,000 and $100,000.
That massive upfront cash reality is exactly why asking yourself, can I afford the down payment, is just an incomplete question. A much better question, and actually the one the CFPB specifically recommends you ask, is this. Can I afford the entire transition from renter to homeowner? You've got to account for the true, total cost of moving, buying furnishings, making those immediate little repairs, and having a solid safety net for emergencies. It's way, way more than just that initial down payment.
Okay, now let's step into Layer 2, financing, and set up the specific variables for our so-called mortgage machine. As of August 20th, 2026, the average U.S. 30-year fixed mortgage rate was sitting right at 6.65%. So we've got our $320,000 loan amount, our 6.65% rate, and our 30-year timeline. Get ready, because this is where the economics get absolutely wild.
Prepare yourself for a massive aha moment here. When we break down that math over 30 years, if you make every single scheduled payment, you will pay a grand total of $739,000. Remember, your original loan was just $320,000. That means you are paying approximately $419,000 purely in interest. Over 3 decades, you actually pay more in interest than the original loan itself. This is exactly why saying, I bought a $400,000 house is economically misleading. You actually committed yourself to a massive stream of future payments that absolutely dwarfs the sticker price.
And this brings us right to the concept of the hidden machine. You see, your money doesn't just go to the person who sold you the house and disappear into some magical house-shaped box. Your house is a continuous economic ecosystem. Your lender wants principal and interest. Your insurance company wants premiums. The local government wants property taxes.
The utility companies want their cut for electricity and water. Every single participant in this ecosystem wants a piece of your cash flow. To really grasp the sort of terrifying hidden power of this machine, let's use the classic coffee test. If you buy a $5 coffee today, you probably don't think much about it. I mean, we all need our caffeine, right? But if you commit to buying that exact same $5 coffee every single morning for the next 30 years, it totals $54,750. The repeated cash flow turns a tiny purchase into something absolutely huge. While homeownership works on this exact same principle, just on a vastly larger scale. You experience the mortgage 1 month at a time, so it feels manageable, but in reality, you've signed up for hundreds of repeated payments. So that requires a complete shift in our perspective. We have to stop asking if we can handle a single month's payment. The reality of the machine demands that we ask something else. Can my finances survive this payment repeatedly, over decades? And remember, that repeated payment is just the baseline. It doesn't even account for the surprises. Which perfectly leads us to layer 4, maintenance, or what we like to call friction costs. Look, you might have stable income and great savings, but then, out of nowhere, the air conditioner completely fails, or the roof suddenly needs replacing, or your local government decides to hike up property taxes. When you're a renter, a lot of this economic risk and responsibility falls directly on the landlord. You just make an angry phone call and it's their problem. But when you become the homeowner, that risk transfers 100% to you. You get the upside of owning the property, absolutely, but you also carry the full weight of the friction. Let's look at how this friction changes literally everything about how we shop for homes. Imagine you're choosing between House A at $400,000 and House B at $370,000. Right off the bat, House B sounds like a better deal, right? But what if we find out House B has significantly higher property taxes, is sitting in a flood zone that requires expensive insurance, and has this old, failing HVAC system that just bleeds energy? Suddenly, House B's cheaper sticker price is a complete illusion. As the CFPB stresses, you've got to evaluate the total cost of ownership, because a cheaper sticker price definitely does not guarantee a cheaper house.
Okay, now let's transition to one of the most overlooked concepts in all of real estate, the invisible price. When you take 80 grand in cash and put it down on a house, that money is now completely tied up. It's essentially trapped inside the walls of that property. And look, while building equity in a home is a great thing, there is a fundamental rule of economics at play here: opportunity cost.
Opportunity cost simply means that your $80,000 cannot simultaneously be used somewhere else. By choosing the house, you are actively choosing to give up the potential returns of keeping that cash liquid, investing it in the stock market, using it to fund higher education, or even using it as seed money to start a business. The economic cost of buying a house isn't just the cash you pay, it's also what you give up by committing your capital to this specific asset.
I know what you're thinking. At this point, after looking at all this interest, friction, and opportunity cost, you're probably asking yourself, so, is buying a house just a terrible deal? Honestly, it might feel like it right now. But I want to be perfectly clear here. We are not saying homeownership is inherently bad. Not at all. That is totally the wrong conclusion to draw from this data.
There are incredibly powerful, very real benefits to home ownership. First and foremost, you get a place to live. You gain equity with every single principal payment you make. You have the potential for massive property appreciation over time, and as the CFPB highlights, you gain incredible stability and protection from the rising, unpredictable costs of the rental market. Plus, eventually, when that mortgage is finally paid off, your monthly housing expense drops dramatically.
So the ultimate takeaway from this explainer is a massive paradigm shift. The lesson isn't to avoid buying a house altogether. The lesson is this: don't confuse owning an asset with being able to afford the asset. They are two entirely different things. The financial commitment surrounding a house is dramatically larger than its original asking price, and you have to be fully prepared to fund the machine.
Which brings us to our final thought. The next time you're scrolling through real estate listings and you see that beautiful $400,000 house with the perfect window for a Christmas tree, I want you to stop, just for a second. Don't ask if you can make the monthly payment. Instead, I want you to ask yourself this provocative question. What does this house actually cost me to own, and can my future self afford the machine? Because understanding the decades of interest, taxes, insurance, and opportunity cost attached to owning it, that is the true key to mastering the economics of buying a house.